Do you ever see someone say or do something so confidently that for a split second, you feel drawn to it and you just think, wow, I want to do that. I want to do the same thing. And that's usually just before your brain shuts it down and you start thinking no, that's not like me. That's not me. Or it's not really my place. It's almost like we're thinking, who am I to do the same? And we don't even realize how early we learn to put limits on who we're allowed to be. I'm speaking from experience here, but we're told from a pretty young age at school that success is following a pretty clear path. You study, and then you graduate, then you get a job, and then you climb the ladder. And so anyway, starting anything outside of that path is very scary, or even worse, selfish or wrong in the eyes of most people. And those aren't even your beliefs. They're inherited from school, from family, from society, from religion sometimes. We are taught to attach our worth to roles. And so those roles, they're not just ideas anymore. They become your emotional safety blankets because it's just comforting to know that you are who you're meant to be. And so we hold on so tightly to this should version of ourselves, then starting something new feels scary. It feels dangerous because if I do something any different, then who am I anymore? If I'm the nice girl and I say no, does that make me a bad person? If I'm a pretty studious and serious girl, then does starting learning hip hop fit the expectation that people have of me and that I have of myself? Those are questions that we ask ourselves on a daily. And it's not just self-doubt, it's deep conditioning. It's like your whole nervous system screaming, stick to the rule or else. Actually, just a few days ago, I was thinking again, who am I to start this YouTube channel? And I asked myself questions like, who is going to want advice from me? Why would anyone want to watch my content? And time again, it feels like I'm not legit to do that. And I would need some sort of certificate to be allowed to speak. Because that's how this invisible, constant pressure is making you feel like, right? But here's where I land every time that I think that way. I would certainly never claim that I'm here to say, this is the way you should be doing things, or this is the exact truth. I'm not the life expert. And by the way, if there is such a thing as a life expert, they shouldn't be telling you either this is the only way. But I like to think that I'm just someone who's paying attention to what I learn, to what I stumble over, to how life is shaping me. And I'm just sharing a perspective. And that's personally the type of content that I crave. I want to see different perspectives, and sometimes I will take away things from it, sometimes not. But all of this to say that this is basically the invisible pressure that we carry with us on a daily. And I think it's very important that we actively and consciously address those questions so that we don't let those doubts and questions take over ourselves. I heard Alex Hormozy say something about this, and I think I shared it already, but don't get me wrong, I'm not always a fan of his and of his tone specifically, but it's undeniable that he's extremely successful and he's amazing at starting and restarting things from scratch. And so it goes something like this: you have to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good. And so basically, I don't need someone to grant me permission to show up and speak. And I don't need to have it all figured out. You're always going to be behind some people in certain things, and you're always going to be ahead of some people in others. All I have to do is to be honest and be willing to suck at it long enough until I get better. And so what do we do to face this invisible, constant pressure? We learn to detach. And we don't detach from our dreams, we detach from the expectations because they never belong to us in the first place. Radical acceptance can't be passive, it has to be active clarity. For those of you who are not familiar with this concept, I'm going to put the definition somewhere on the screen. But basically, it's like saying, it's okay if I don't have it all figured out. It's okay if I'm not perfect. And it's okay if people don't understand. I'm going to do it anyway. And too bad for people if they don't get it. And when you start doing that, when you stop clinging to validation, permission, or certainty, you start breathing again. And what you do is that you give yourself permission to try, to explore, and to fail without constantly falling apart, because you're not trying to please or to get approval from anyone anymore. You're just being yourself. And that's the only thing that matters, to dare begin new things without permission other than your own. And so if this hits home, I have a question for you that you can ask yourself. I personally ask myself this question actively every time that I face those self-doubts, those deep conditionings. Basically, every time that there's this little voice that says you should do this, I ask myself this: is this really what you want deep down? Is it really you, or is it what's expected of you? And the answer may surprise you most of the time. Very often what it takes to learn new things is to unlearn our unconscious patterns. And that's what we're here to do. So hopefully some of my perspectives helps you get clarity. Keep going, you got this.